What's going on, guys? Today, I don't really know how to even say it. We're just going to shit on hustle culture. I'm kind of sick of it. And it's not the fact that I'm not hating on the individuals, the one percenters who made it. All right. You got to, your game respects game. You know, you can't deny someone's success. If they're clearly successful, I'm not hating on their success. That's awesome. They're making tons of money doing what they did. They found a niche market, or whatever they've done is a unique enough thing that they've made it big. Okay, I can't ignore that. That's awesome. And, congrats to them. And of course, yes, I wish I had that kind of success doing that sort of a thing. But it's not my thing. I'm not a businessman, entrepreneur mentality. I don't have that kind of mindset. I work a government job. You know, not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur, hustler mindset thing. Like, that's just one of the. So, my number one issue with the hustle mindset advertisements on social media that I keep seeing all the time is like, anybody can do this. There's just 5 simple steps that I was a millionaire by the time I was 25 years old. I'm like, oh yeah, 5 simple steps, huh? Just like, oh yeah, get a side job, do this, do that. No, 5 simple things that anybody can do and you'll be a millionaire. Oh, but follow, like, and subscribe my content so you can keep getting these tips and tricks so I'm still getting paid while you're out there struggling to hustle. You know, and it's again, it's a Ponzi scheme. In case some of you, like, again, I'm a boomer. I'm 38 years old, I was born in the 80s. I'm old enough to remember actual Ponzi schemes happening before, like, the internet took off, well before cell phones, but like there was actually, you know, like the Tupperware gang, like a lot of like single moms or just like a lot of women, stay-at-home moms got involved in these little Ponzi scheme things. Like, I remember my family, all the women in my family got into these little phone cards back in the day. Like, to make long distance calls way back in like the early 90s and shit, like, you actually had to have like a prepaid phone card to call your carrier and be like, hey, I want to use this card with a code to be able to call somebody in Seattle to Florida, call somebody in Europe, and it costs 10 times the points or whatever. That's how the phones used to work back in the day. So there was like Ponzi schemes that, like, oh, I'm at the top of the pyramid, so I need to refer 3 friends, and if they refer 3, then they get their chunk of change, and then I get a cut of theirs, and then if all of those people refer more, that's how pyramid schemes work. Okay, Ponzi schemes, whatever you want to call them. Like, again, these are not new. This is like older than anybody watching this video. Pyramid schemes have been out there for a long freaking time, and they're not new. And it's just so funny that it's been, God, it's almost, I'm 40 years old, that I've seen these rebranded. I hate that term branding, but the pyramid scheme has been rebranded to be completely different, and that's what it is. Like, these cell phones, social media is like the greatest pyramid scheme tool to help these people out. Every time you guys are following, liking, and subscribing, and helping the algorithm of the hustlers, like, you're the sucker. All right, you are the reason they're making money, because they're getting paid from social media from all your time spent looking at their shit. Even if you don't follow any of their advice, they're still making money off of your time. Okay, that's like how these social media pyramid schemes work. So that's just the basis of it. We're at the icing on the cake, tip of the iceberg with how funny this shit is to me. And I just don't think a lot of people realize it. So then let's go into the hypocrisy and the laughability of. Matter of fact, the reason is because I just saw there's a girl on Instagram. Like, I'm not, you just drop her full name or whatever. It's her, Addison something another. And I just kind of laughed because she just dropped a video that was saying, like, hey, this is how you can be a millionaire by the time you're 25 years old. And I was making $30,000 a year at this shitty job. And then I did this, 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 and this, these 5 simple tips. And now I'm 25 and I'm a millionaire. And it's like, as soon as I see the headlines, I'm like, all right, I love these. The too good to be true stories, like 5 simple things that anybody who's in poverty can do, and you'll be a millionaire. He, he, he. You know, God for, and then, so then you just sit there and, like, immediately I see, like, oh, we bought a shitty fixer-upper home, screenshot of like a crappy painted vinyl siding house. Oh, here I am polishing some tile, and, we did all the fixing up ourselves. Okay, cool. And then, like, that other Airbnb, the spare bedroom we Airbnb'd for $20,000 a year. And then on the side, I did like photography and wedding stuff, made $20,000 a year. And then on this other thing, made $20,000. It's just, like all these other things you can do to make blank, blank, blank amounts of money per year and all that. And then, of course, I see then the photo of like her with her husband standing in front of something. And so, and I sent her a message. I sent the message on the post because it's like, all right, I like how you've presented these 5 facts, but there's a couple of key details you might have left out of here, which all of these social media like hustlers, they all leave certain details out. Every single one. It's never all the same details, but there's a lot of like, just like the if you guys have ever seen Wizard of Oz, but like there's a lot behind the curtain they're not showing you. All right, don't be fooled by the freaking glamour. There's some shit behind the scenes that you're not. So my simple question is like, cool. And one, the fact that like when found out she was 25 years old, I mean, I can't even finish the thought. I was like, okay, wow, I didn't think you were 25. I thought you were like my fucking age. So I was like, okay, so whatever. Anyway, but it's like, all right, you're 25, cool. How old is your husband? And this is the typical cute white couple, living in the suburbs somewhere. Based on the photos and stuff that they post, I'm like, all right, you're not living in any urban area that I can tell. Like you live out somewhere in the suburbs or out in the countryside. Don't know. I would love to find out exactly where. I'm hoping I get that in a post. But it's like, all right, first off, how old is your 25-year-old white chick? Cool, you married a white dude. How old is he, and what does he do for a living? Because I noticed in your post, you mentioned that you worked like a $30,000 a job, a year job. You didn't mention what your husband did for work. That's a kind of a key detail. Like, you can't really claim to be a strong, independent woman out here, hustling and shit when you married somebody who's maybe he's already making X amount of dollars a year and he's actually paying all the bills with the stability that allows you to go out here and do all your side hustles. Okay, I know a lot of people, and again, government jobs here, so that's my history. Is like I've known my whole life has been government work, and a lot of the dudes I know from down south and other places where it's like, yes, they work a good government job for the security, salary, benefits that it provides the family. And while you have that, because you're guaranteed a paycheck every 2 weeks, blah, 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 vacation, sick time, all that other good stuff, you're guaranteed to get paid. That's really good. That's a lot of stuff that other jobs don't provide you. So there's safety and security in that, okay? So when you have that, your spouse has the ability to go roll the dice and get 14 different side hustles a year, okay? So if you guys see my point, again, I'm not trying to compare like government to private work, that thing. My point is that, if your spouse is the one who's got this, I don't want to say breadwinner, but if they have the stable job, and again, I say that stable with they have like the insurance, like benefits, like insurance, sick leave, paid parental stuff like that. Yeah, if your spouse is the one that has that for the two of you, then you're not really facing the same struggles that a single mom who's 25 years old is going to have to deal with. Or anybody who's just on their own and doesn't have a stable partner, a spouse that has these benefits that are giving them. All right. So that right there, that's the first issue right there. Okay. That kind of breaks apart your whole argument is the foundation of, okay, you say you started with a $30,000 a year job. Okay. Well, if your husband or your spouse, again, because I'm not going to go into male, female, whatever gender roles shit, we're going to stay away from that. But if you're saying this and you're married to somebody that's got all this going on, then again, you can't claim like, oh, I'm strong, independent, something, because you're not. Like you have a partner who's got a job. So again, that's where that transparency needs to come through. Like, don't tell me you made a $30,000. Like, how much did you in the household make? Like, that's where you need to be clear. Like, oh, because that's going to be really shitty. Like, because if I married somebody and she was out there doing, I would just say, if I was her husband, right there, I'm just going to put this scenario out there. If right there, like, that chick Addison was my wife and she posted that post and had nothing to do with me in there, and then it later came out to find like, oh, wait, yeah, you're married to a 38-year-old guy working for the government. He makes almost 150 grand a year. Wow. That seems pretty good for you to be out here. You can go out here hustling when, yeah, if your spouse makes that much freaking money, oh, golly, it feels like anybody could be able to go out there and roll the dice and hustle till you busted, found your nut, or whatever the euphemism you want to use for this. You feel me? You guys understand where I'm going with this. So that's my first thing that just kind of pisses me off with that. And again, I see this more with the hustling women on social media. You're hustling guys. They, again, most of them don't brag about whatever their spouse does. And again, this is one of those slippery slope topics that we can get into gender roles, and like your Andrew Tates, where it's like the man's supposed to do all this and the woman's just supposed to stay at home and clean and blah blah blah. Like, we're not going to get into the whole that stuff, because again, this topic could have a lot of ugly heads to it. And again, I'm not really trying to give an opinion on all that. I'm just a generalization, and I hope you guys are intelligent enough to see where I'm trying to go with this without being like, yes, but actually. Yes, I know. We can play the what if game and go down the rabbit holes on all this all day. We're not. Okay, so we talked about the whole lack of transparency on what does your spouse do? And again, I'm just going to go ahead and call it like, yes, you're a young white couple living in rural America somewhere. You're probably going to be able to get a loan for certain things. All right? And again, let's talk about another thing right there. Okay, you bought a fixer-upper house. What kind of loan did you get? How much did you pay for that house? What kind of loan? Did you do FHA? Was your and again, speaking as one myself, this is why I can tell you, like, was your husband a veteran getting a VA loan? Okay, and that's a big deal. VA loan, you don't have to do a down payment. That's huge. I don't know if you guys have seen how much houses cost these days, but an FHA and some of these other loans, you need like 15 to 30% for some of these loans. Getting a VA loan where you don't have to have anything down, that's huge. That's massive. So again, there are certain benefits and things that I feel like if you're not transparent about that, it sort of takes apart the clout to your story. All right, I can't really fully support your like Hall of Fameness if we don't know the full details of this. So again, details of the freaking more, like how much did you pay for the house? How did you finance it? Stuff like that. And then you're Airbnb-ing it. And again, I'm assuming because you guys, you're this cute white couple in the suburb, wherever you're at, that you can Airbnb that other bedroom while that's your primary residence. So again, where do you live? Location. What state? What part of the country is this in where you're managing to do that, where you're making $20,000 a year off of a one bedroom in an Airbnb house that you're already staying in? So again, you see, like, there's just certain little things of details that, and then of course they go into like, oh, and then we just do the three things, buy, rent, refurbish and redo whatever. Like, it sounds like you're flipping property. That's kind of where it seems to me like, okay, so you guys talking about you're flipping houses now and renting properties out. Well, now we're talking even better. It's like, cool. So how much money do you have to where you're being able to afford property? Because again, you're 25. So I'm going to assume if you're 25 today, what's today, March 5th, 2024. If you're 25, you were born in 1999. So at 20 years old, that's, you were 20 when COVID hit. So at 20 years old, how are you getting a mortgage? Making whatever money you claim to make at 20 years old. That's 5 years ago. 5 years ago, when COVID hit in 2019, you were 20 years old. How did you get a mortgage? So again, now we come back to the spouse, that your husband in the photos there. Like, one of you had to be doing something in order to afford a mortgage to buy these properties, right? Again, I'm not trying to be an asshole here, but like, it seems like common sense to follow the money and the numbers. Like, you're just not going out there acquiring all these houses willy-nilly. Like, how are you getting these properties? Next thing is like, what kind of properties are we talking about here? Because these things do matter. Because I do know guys who've done this 20 years ago where they just bought up land and then they made a trailer park out of it. And they just bought a whole bunch of used trailers, put them on there, and then now they've got that. And that's decent income. That does add up. So again, what kind of rentals did you buy a fourplex somewhere in the city, or did you, again, now you're just buying trailers or mobile homes and moving them somewhere on land and hooking them up to power poles and shit like that? Like, yeah, you can do some small investments and make some long-term money out of that. But again, details matter. If you're sitting here trying to tell people how to get rich quick and do what I do with the hustle by 25 and be a millionaire, you kind of need to break down like, all right, this is what I fucking did, not just like, oh, just work hard, guys, because that's the kind of bullshit lie that we were sold, okay? As a boomer, born in the 80s, That is the thing that when we went to school in the 90s, that's the dream we were sold. All right? If you work hard, graduate high school, and all you had to do was go to college and get a bachelor's degree and stay out of jail. 4 things. You do those 4 things. Maybe don't have a kid before you graduate high school. So we'll do 5. 5 at most. If you did those 5 things, that's what we were promised in the 90s. If you did those 5 things, your future was guaranteed and you were going to have it great, because that's what our parents did. You know, in the 80s and stuff, that's all you had to do. You had a college degree in the 80s without a criminal record, you were making bank. You could have those. I mean, you guys have seen Stranger Things, all right? There's a good reference of that in there with the, you know, the main characters, like his mom, Winona Ryder. You know, they're living in the freaking poorhouse, and then her son is dating the rich girl. You know, and her dad's like a software engineer or something. It's like, yeah, he just went to school, graduated college, and he makes bank in the 80s. Like, that's the standard that they had. And that's what they tried to sell us in the 90s. That, yeah, work hard and go to school, and yay. Back when houses cost $50,000 for a thing in the suburbs. And then a student, you know, student loans were like, oh, what? A degree would cost you, what, 20 grand in the 80s or something from a good school? You know, and of course we already know how much freaking inflation and stuff like that. Like, the same standards cannot be used in today. And that sucks. And that's where, like, for you guys, like, I can't, like, again, I'm 38, and I look at guys 10, 15 years younger than me, and I mean, I don't see how some people do it, man. I mean, I graduated in 2004, went in the Marine Corps, and that got me out of, you know, my parents' house. And even then, coming back out of the military, I had to, like, move back in with some family until I found a good a job with salary benefits and all that, and got on my feet again. All right, and again, that was 09, yeah, 2009-ish. So I understand, like, people do have hiccups, and sometimes you need help. And I'm not immune to that. I made some really dumb mistakes in the late 2000s. After I got out of the military, man, I didn't know how to manage money. I didn't understand credit. I didn't understand how a lot of things worked. And again, this is still, you know, social media wasn't a big thing back then. We had MySpace and Facebook, but the influencer thing was not around at that time. And, like, if you didn't go to classes to learn some of this shit, you just didn't know. And that's fine, because making mistakes and fucking up is how you become a better person, an adult, and learning, like, hey, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to be freshly married, and then I can't, like, oh, I lived beyond my means. Like, we got married and I moved into a really expensive apartment that we couldn't afford, and after the year lease was up, like, we didn't have anywhere to go, and now I got to live on my buddy's couch for a month or two till we can get some money together to get a house. Like, people do some dumb shit, and again, I've done it. I could tell you some stories about stuff that I'm extremely embarrassed that, as a grown man in my 20s, that's the decisions I made back then. But you know, you don't know what you don't know till you do. And so when I see the hustle shit here, that when it's just praise upon young minds like that who are just ignorant, and I don't mean like ignorant in like the nasty way we like to use that word in society, but like, you're ignorant that you just don't know. Like, you weren't educated on the topic, and you just don't freaking know. And that's not your fault, because again, they don't teach this shit in schools. They didn't teach it when I was in school. Freaking, we had a home ec class, and I think we learned how to, like, sew something. We learned how to do CPR on a toddler. I think we went over balancing a checkbook one time, and that's pretty much it. Like, we didn't do cooking or like, we didn't learn any life skills in school in 2000s. You know, so, and I can't imagine it's gotten any better since then. So unless you were, like, homeschooled and had some really good parents that actually taught you this shit, like, in America, we're not set up to succeed like this financially in the future. And that's what the 1% wants. Because if you're dumb sheep and you don't know how to behave, you just live off of credit cards, and you let social media influencers, like, you know, tell you how to live your life and do what I do. And unfortunately, guys, it's never going to work. All right, the 1% are the 1% because they got in when it was, like, before it boomed. Like, all the guys who do crypto, okay? There's a lot less crypto rich people out there than you actually think there are. Like, remember NFTs, okay? And then it turns out NFTs was a giant scam. All these millionaires from NFTs were just literally buying and selling them to a circle of friends with each other just to inflate numbers. Okay, and a lot of crypto did the same thing. There's a handful of people that made a ton of money off that. A few people made some decent scratch, but until you get in early, you're just, I mean, that's kind of it. You got to get lucky. And that's how the 1% generally do. Unless you inherit a business and you inherit wealth, you have to be very lucky to get that 1% status. All right. You can work, I mean, just like in today's standards. So I don't buy that bullshit where if you work hard, all your dreams will come true. No. You can work hard, go to college, do all the right things, and you're still drowning in debt. You can finish, I've got a cousin who's a vet. Um, I know people who are working on their doctorate programs, and I see how much money they pay to go to these schools. And I'm like, you just spent almost a decade in school. You're $500,000 in debt for this degree from a decent university. And you'll make a ton of money in your lifetime with that. But then I'm thinking, just off a student, like, how long is it? Like, I'm not a math wizard here, but the amount of time it's going to take to pay off those student loans, and then plus getting a mortgage and all the other things in life to do that, like, yeah, you're going to have to make a ton of money a year to make those kind of, that's the thing. So you can go to school and do all the right things and be in your late 20s with a doctorate degree and be drowning in debt already. And let's just say you went the route that I did. I didn't finish college. Okay, I did the military thing and then I kept working for the government and law enforcement and stuff like that. I chose that route. So I'm not drowning in I never had student debt to worry about. I had the GI Bill with the military that covered all that. And so I never had to worry about that. I went ahead and just did hey, got married, then divorced, got the mortgage, truck payment, stuff like that. And it's just like the contrast between the two that, and God, like, I think I bought my house for less than $100,000 back in 2013, where I lived at in Florida. And I think now that house today, just because of all the hurricanes and inflation that's happened since, I think that house is at least double that. In, was it 10 years when I bought it a little over 10 years ago. And that's insane. That just inflation does that to these markets. And like, that house is now worth $200K. That house was worth $90,000, absolutely. It's crazy. And then I sit there, look at my truck, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, my truck cost almost as much as my house back then. Like, hustling, working hard, and all your dreams will come true. And it's not, guys. You have to be lucky. Now, you can do a lot of these things, and it will improve your situation. Matter of fact, she just answered my thing right now. Oh, okay, so Addison just responded to my thing. So husband and I graduated and got jobs at the same time. We moved to Arkansas because we saw real good real estate opportunity there. No inheritance, just lots of creative and strategic decisions and a lot of elbow grease. But regardless of people's unique situations, there are some actionable tips you can model. But again, see, and right there, I could screenshot you guys that response, but I just read it. But the problem with that right there is, again, you sugarcoated it. You just sugarcoated your response, which was, okay, Arkansas. And that answers a lot of that right there. It's freaking Arkansas. Okay, there's like I'm going to call them major because I'm in Seattle, major city. There's like 3 actual urban centers in Arkansas. And the rest of that shit's where freaking homeboys go duck hunting and farming out there. I've been through there several times in my travels. So, okay, yeah. So right there, you're a white couple with both of you college degrees. You didn't say what jobs you got. Again, you mentioned you both graduated at the same time, so I'm going to say you're both 25. So, again, that now opens up more questions to me where I'd love to have these answered. So, cool. So, you guys graduated college at the same time. How much money did you make to where you were able to afford mortgages for these properties? Right? Because think about that. If you're a bank and you just see like a freshly married couple who, like, cool, you guys graduated college, what assets do you have? What kind of properties are you buying? How much would these things cost? So again, that's where, like, stories, when the story doesn't make sense or you're leaving out details that would actually give your story credibility, that's when, and again, cool, you didn't inherit any property. That's a huge one. I'm going to jump into that one next. I know a lot of guys, especially down south, got that old money. Where there's people I know who stay down south because, well, we inherited this land. Like, this is my family's land, so we built a house on it, and we never had to pay the property taxes because it's just family land that my great-grandparents are, whatever. Or same thing, they inherit a house. Like, oh, so and so died, and then we got the house because we lived nearby anyway. So now you got to inherit a house, and you've never had a mortgage payment. And there, like, I know people who are still living in that part of Florida today who will never leave. Like, they make like $700 every 2 weeks. They work dog shit, poor jobs, and they'll never leave because, yeah, I've got this double wide trailer out on some land that I don't have to pay for, and they don't want to be able to afford rent. And again, that's a mindset of people. And there's a difference. Like, I've always said this for a long time, that there's a difference between being poor and broke. All right, I've been broke 3 times in my life, by the point where, like, I had not a dollar to my name. I was married for 2 of these times, and again, living on somebody's couch till we unfucked ourselves. Okay, and then we got on our feet and things were fine. Okay, being broke, that's like a status. That's right there. Like, I have no money. That's being broke. Being poor is, you can have money and still be poor. That's a mindset. That's that, like, oh, we're never gonna do better, and I don't want to do better because I've got this government benefit. That's the people who live off of disability or the freaking welfare checks and stuff like that. That's a state of mind, a mental well-being. That's mentality, that I want to stay in this state because I'm getting something for free, and if I actually have to work, where I'd actually get a lot more benefits than the free one I'm getting, I'd still have to work, and that's hard. It's just easier to stay where I'm at and get this free thing. And unfortunately, I mean, another whole conversation. I feel that's a lot of people in this country. We have a fudge ton of people who just want to stagnate and get a benefit, versus, and this is where I give the social media people their credit, instead of hustling or trying to work hard to overcome and get better things, you just rather stagnate. And that's the thing I did. I moved to Seattle. I hate it. I hate the Seattle. I straight up, fuck this place. I hate the Seattle area. I hate the people, the politics. I don't even want to call it, the lack, it's like what's the opposite of diversity? It is diversity. There's like, so much illegal immigration, homeless crime, the lack of any kind of policing. Like, there's so many things I hate about Seattle, and I cannot wait to leave this place and never come back to the West Coast again. Fuck the West Coast. Don't care who you are. I will say that till the day I die. But I had to move out here for opportunity because I took a job that I make more than 5 years ago. I make more than double the money I made 5 years ago when I was in Florida. And that's the opportunity I had, and I took it. All right. Did it suck? Because now I'm in a place that I hate? Absolutely. And I pray every day I can get a better job somewhere back on the East Coast, away from here. But that is a sacrifice. That's a thing I made to make more money and to further my career and get benefits for retirement and shit like that. So eventually, like, when I hit 50, like, that's my goal, is like, I want to be in my 50s, get a government pension, whatever I got, and then I'm done. I don't have to worry about anything else. So that's why I'm making sacrifices, decisions in my point now. I'm not a hustler. Again, you will never hear me say that I'm a hustler trying to get out there and do no, that's why I'm a government employee. I'm a freaking lazy piece of shit. Okay, I love the security that this offers. Okay, I don't want to have to go out there and work side jobs and do all this stuff. And if I don't go out there today, like, I'm worried, like, I can call into my job right now and not go to work for a week and I'll still get paid. I love that. That's an amazing thing, which is why I love the government and working for it. So kudos and my hat's off, truthfully, to the people that do go out there and grind and hustle real freaking difficult jobs, okay? And I respect that. There's also certain industries, that's where I don't believe in giving a charity. Fuck all charities. I don't care. I don't care about your sick children in Africa, cancer baby. I don't give a fuck about any of those things. I don't. But I will tip the shit out of people I actually do know and see. Like, people that, I mean, not now, but like when I got haircuts. If I go out to a restaurant or bar or something like that where a server, and like, that person is directly impacting my life and my day. All right, how they interacted with me made me feel good or bad about the restaurant or place I'm at. And if they do a good job, I'm not even shitting you. Like, I tip 50% or more. If I like the server, I will minimum 50%. If they're really good, like, I'm straight up, I'm a straight white male. So if there's a really cute bartender and she's like super cute and she's flirty and she's actually giving good service, like legit, she's like, my drink has never gone below half full. She's just Johnny on the spot with everything. Like, I'll tip the bill. By that I mean, like, oh, if it's like a $30 bill, I'm going to tip her $30 too. Because all that, like, again, that's what I believe giving charity to. Man. And I've always been that way. I've always thought, and I did. And the reason why is because I married that. My ex-wife was a server for a while in certain different restaurants and stuff, and hearing the stories and things that she told, and just always thought, like, man, those are people, like, that's a hard job. That's a difficult job. And, like, if I'm going to sit down and eat, and eating is a good special part of your day, like, you're taking in nutrients, like, that's a time you decompress from work or whatever. I mean, I can't tell you how many times when I lived in Florida, like, I've had just shitty days, and at like 2 o'clock in the morning, I couldn't sleep. And I've just driven up to the Waffle House and, like, hey, just let me get an All-Star and just, like, freaking waffle, 2 scrambled eggs, bacon, and a piece of toast, and a glass of Coke. And that just turned my night around. And just hearing some 55-year-old chain-smoking waitress, honey, how are you? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. You know, that kind of, with a southern accent, if I could imitate that. You know, that's a thing. So, like, I've always believed that servers or people in the service industry, they have an impact on your life. And I think that should be recognized. And that's what I believe in tipping in. I don't give a fuck about charities. I never have and never will. Same thing with donating to churches or any of that shit. Fuck all of those. I don't care. And the reason this is very well documented. If you actually know anybody who works in a charity and you see the corporate structure of that, if you give $1 to a charity, just Google it. If you give $1 to charity, how much of that dollar actually went to that fucking kid with cancer or those starving children in Africa or those Afghani refugees? All right? When you see how much of that actually matters, you're like, no, I'm never giving to that shit again. Oh, would you like to round up the Seattle Children's Hospital? Nope, fuck those kids. Don't care. If I see one on the street, like, I'll buy that kid a meal. I've done that. Like, I've actually done that because I'm a petty piece of shit. All right? I've done this where I've seen fresh military kids from right out of boot camp. You can tell the shitty haircut and everything, where they try to go to, like, Taco Bell. They try to go to a restaurant somewhere, and he's like, oh, fuck, I didn't bring my wallet or whatever. And I've paid for somebody's meal because I'm in line. And it's not because I'm trying to be like, hey, thank you for your service, young man. Like, I'm a vet too. Get the fuck out of here. I don't give a shit about your service. Get out of here. You're taking up my time. All right, my time is valuable. I had 24 hours in a day, and I'm not going to get that time back. So me paying your $10 Taco Bell bill is worth you getting the fuck out of my way so I can pay for my shit and go on about my day. All right? So when I'm generous to certain things, it's out of selfishness. But I'm at least honest enough to admit that. And that's a big thing. I think a lot of people give the charity, and they're like, oh no, I give the charity because I'm a good person. No, you're a selfish twat. Just like everybody else out there who gives to anything. You give because it feels good. It makes you feel like a good person, that I have excess and I have enough that I can give it to somebody who I think or feel has less, and that makes me feel like I'm a good Christian or a good person or whatever. Go fuck yourself, okay? We all do it because it makes us feel good. I do it because you're wasting my fucking time. Get out of the way. Get out of the line. Let me get my shit so I can get out of here and go on about my day. I'm tired of being in the freaking mall, okay? I've done that, so I honestly more times than I can count where I've paid for somebody just because he's taking it, like, or like my server. That's the thing. I did that last month, as a matter of fact, and the chick I was out with was like, you're insane. My server kept getting wrapped up with this other table, this young couple, and they were being annoying as fuck. I could hear their conversation, and they were taking up, like, I was ready to go. I had 30 minutes, I'm waiting to pay my ticket and leave. And this couple's taking up my server, and she's not coming over there so I can pay my bill. So server finally came over, and I was like, hey, look, those kids' bill, like, go ahead and, like, put it on this, okay? Because I want to pay for my crap and get out of here, but just pay for their shit too, so that way you don't have to just come right back. Come right back to me with this so we can get out of here. I just want to leave. All right? Because again, maybe where you guys live is better, but here in the Seattle area, I freaking hate going out to eat at restaurants now. I feel a lot of the service has kind of gone downhill in a lot of restaurants around here. Just the minimum raise increases and price hikes with all this crazy shit and the DoorDash wars going on with all this. So I hate restaurants now. And it really sucks that I used to love going out to eat. That was an awesome thing. And I guess that's another thing the Seattle area has done, where it's just made restaurants just intolerable. And then the tipping culture, Christ on a cracker, that's another, fuck Dutch Bros. All he's like, oh, were they just force tipping down your throat? It's like, no, I'll never, and I fuck Starbucks. I go to Starbucks every morning, get my $6 Trenta freaking cold brew. I will never tip anybody at Starbucks $1. Fuck all those people. You're already charging me $6 for dirt water, 30 ounces of dirt water with some sugar pumps in it. All right. Your job is to, like, that's your task, is to, like, take the water, the cold brew. You poured 28 ounces of cold brew into a plastic cup. All right. And then you whipped up some foam, poured it on top of there, and you put a lid on it. You handed that to me. Why would I tip you for that? Like, and if you're a barista and you're like, yeah, fuck that guy, blah, 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 that's fine, okay? But, like, I have a job too, and I don't get tips at my job. I do what I do. I'm paid X amount of dollars an hour to do what I do. And let's just say I was a barista, whether I make 1 cup of coffee in an hour or I do 50 cups of coffee in an hour, I get paid X amount of dollars an hour. I don't get tips, okay? That's just the flip. That's just the job. That's, like, what your job is. You chose to do that job, and that's what your task is. Like, you chose to work at Starbucks, all right? And guess what? Your job is, at certain points of the day, it's going to get busy, and you're going to be slinging coffee like a crackhead. And especially when it comes to be late August, when that pumpkin spice drizzly goodness hits, you, like, all the basic bitches, including myself, will be there as soon as your doors open to demand pumpkin spice goodness in our lives. And you'll hate it. But that's what you signed up for. Nobody forced you to go do that job. Okay, you chose to do that job, and you knew what that job entails. And when you think like you deserve tipping for just doing your job, you're insane. Now, that being said, there are people who can do a mundane job extraordinarily. There are servers at my Starbucks, the one that I go to, which is like half a mile down the road. They know me by name because I'm in there. I come in there the same time every day for work, and I don't do drive-thru. That's my thing, because I like to greet them and say hi, because that's the people that make my coffee and starts my day off every day. And I go in there and they say, they know me by name. I don't know all their names because part of this, and this, I know this is shitty, but, like, I don't know, everybody has the pronoun thing going on in this area, and my Starbucks especially has some pronoun warriors in there, and I choose to just, I'm not even going to jump on that thing. I just like to say, hey, y'all, have a good day, guys. And then that's it. I don't like to address anybody by name or whatever, just because I'm tired of fighting that fight in this area. Again, that's a whole other video I could do on that topic, so I just try to, and I love this, because this is where, like, this whole level of tolerance and intolerance shit that this wokeness has caused is, like, it has really made me love equality. Because I just want to truly, truly just treat everybody the same. I don't care, like, what race, gender, whatever. You are all they, thems to me. Everybody's a they, them. Just y'all over there, them motherfuckers over there, those whatever, like, they, thems. Just, I want every word that I try to use now to be some kind of all-inclusive thing. And I love they, them, because that does it. Them over there. That, like, you don't have to be specific. And you can't get in trouble for saying it. Nobody can get mad at saying they, them when you point to people. So that's my solution to the whole pronoun. That's how I live my life now in the Seattle area. I've won the pronoun wars. Everybody's they, them. You can't get mad at it. Legally, spiritually, emotionally, you win. So that's how I deal with it. But regardless, so my Starbucks people, they're awesome. All right. Because I also, like, I get this different lid and a straw with mine, and they make my junk right every time, every day, and they're just super good. And they're very polite, and they're like, oh, hey, we've got this on the menu today. Like, I know you liked that last year. Like, we got some new blah, blah, blah. You want to try that today, or you should put that on the order tomorrow. We'll have that ready for you. And I'm like, hey, that's a good idea. I didn't know you guys did egg bites. Like, I'll try that. And then I come tomorrow, and I order it off the app. Like, hey, here's your egg bites. By the way, you can get these at Costco too. Oh, well, thank you. I didn't know that. Now I'll look. That's when I'm like, okay, what was her name? Sherry. Boom. I would like to tip her money. Next part of the tipping that I do hate, depending on your restaurant, I do not like places that group tip. And anybody watching this, like if you're a server already, I could hear your sigh of frustration because this shit sucks. My ex-wife, she worked at a few good restaurants that did that group shit where everybody, like all the servers got a percentage of the tip pool. So all the tips you make have to go into the big jar, and then that's split at the end of the night. And that's bullshit. That is straight, because it doesn't matter if you do a good job, or that's my biggest thing. My gripe about working for the government is that's literally my everyday thing is like, all right, if I work next to this dirtbag person 2 days a week, I work with them, and I literally do 3 to 4 times the amount of work they do, and I can prove it through statistics on the computer because everything's tracked. So if I'm literally doing 3 to 4 times your work and we're getting paid the same, that's bullshit. I fucking hate that with a passion. And that's where I was like, I feel like you should be thrown in jail. Or what I'd love to do is like, if you were talking about fairness and equality, which that's what the government and that's what in America, we're all about fairness and equality. At that point in the time, like, look, if the standard is, if you're not going to punish somebody for working slow as fuck, or maybe I'm just that good and I'm like, maybe that person is average and I'm doing 3 to 4 times what is considered average, cool. If you're not going to pay me extra, then at that point, the standard should be like, cool, well, I'm only going to work 25% of the time. If I'm doing 4 times the work, if I'm doing 400% of the work of that person, and we work like a 10-hour shift, then at 3 hours into my shift, I should just be able to go home for the day. Because at 3 hours, I've done enough work that person's going to do for the entirety of the shift, then I should just be able to go home and still get the same pay. Right? Equal work for equal pay, equality, all that other good stuff that we preach about in this country. Like, I wish that was the case, but it's not, And that's going back to servers and tipping. I despise and I refuse to tip at places that do the shared tip pool thing. And I always ask now, if I do go to restaurants, which is seldom, but if I go to a restaurant, I do ask, hey, are you tipped individually or does this go to the pool? And it's kind of a different thing. Like, it's kind of where I carry cash now. Like, I hate doing cash, but that's a thing you should. If you're like me and you actually do care about the server and you want to tip them properly, ask the server, like, hey, if I tip you on the electronic, like the app, and you tip like, the automatic 15% or whatever, a lot of times the electronic tips do go to the pool. But if I say, hey, I'm not going to tip you on the app, but I'll slide you a $20 bill on the thing, that's a thing that's what I do. Okay, that's my personal recommendation. That's how I overcome the tip jar thingy. Because, again, if my server's awesome, and especially like a good bartender, I love like a good bartender who gets a good Long Island down right, or they're just Johnny on the spot. I'll straight up ask them, like, I don't want to pay this. Like, I'll pay my tab on the card, but I will get cash for you on tip, and I don't want that to go to anybody else. I'll try to, like, however under the table we can do it, because I want that person to get that money, because their service made my experience fantastic, and that's what I want to respect and honor that. And that's a thing that will get repeat business. I will go back to a place that treated me like that. If your service was outstanding and made me feel better than when I came in the restaurant, you deserve my money. Absolutely. I will give you plenty of money because I'll come back. And then I'll leave. And same thing, I don't do Yelp or whatever, but I do leave Google reviews. And I like to try to take photos of stuff because that's how I look at a restaurant. I look at the most recent reviews. How was it? What's the photos of the food? What's the ambiance? What do the seating look like? How are the tables? That's how I check businesses out. So I try to pay that forward because that's how I like to shop for things. Anywho, so we're kind of, I got off on a tangent when we go off to the original subject. So tipping, going back to hustling and all this other, add a thing with your tips to be a millionaire by 25. Yeah, marry a guy. Both of you have college degrees. What kind of degrees? How much student debt do you have? Again, every answer, and again, this is kind of my job for a living, where it's like, yeah, when you interrogate or investigate things and people, and you're trained to like answer every time you give me an answer, I can think of 5 questions to go off of your response to dig deeper into just that one thing. So you give me 5 tips, I've got 25 questions minimum about each I want to know about this shit. So, oh, excuse me. God, that Mountain Dew's delicious. But that's just the truth, guys. I mean, there's really no other way, and I'll argue this to the day I die. There will always be classes in America. Honestly, the world. I had a very, I don't even call him a friend, but it was a coworker of mine from the Ohio area, but now he's in Detroit. And I liked him, but we both had and he's, again, we're roughly about the same age, but young black dude, I'm young white dude, and we had a lot of good racial humor between each other. And I know that's like a delicate thing to say, but it was like one of those things where it's like, hey, we're both comfortable making certain jokes that are not appropriate for any workplace. We all know the shit you can't say at work that'll get you fired or wrote up to HR. But when you can find somebody that's like, hey man, like we can actually, it's like when you watch stand-up comedians, right? Like if a stand-up comedian makes a joke about whatever, like was it Matt Rife? That was like, heard something about him getting canceled because he made a domestic violence joke. Like, okay, he made a joke about a chick with a black eye to be funny. That does not mean Matt Rife openly supports domestic violence. Are you fucking stupid? But that's what the media and that's what we're told to believe. Anywho, but when you find somebody, and you guys all have these people, you guys have friends and coworkers like this, where it's like, hey, like you and we're on the same wavelength that we can make fucked up jokes about what each other's race or religion or family, or upbringing or whatever. Like we can make the jokes. And it's not offensive. It's just funny. And it could be like, hey, we're digging at each other. But it's like, dude, we're just doing it to be funny. I'm not trying to oppress your race, religion, creed, or color. And you're not trying to do the same to me. It's just us being funny. All right. Now, we had that sort of a relationship as coworkers. But then an issue that we actually clashed on one time. And I was really surprised because he never struck me as the kind of guy. But when I made the comment that I said, talking about the hustle and grinding and stuff. And I was like, look, man, it's just not everybody's meant to have money. And that set him off. And I think he believed I made that to be like a racist comment because the following conversation that came from that made it, he just assumed like, oh, what do you mean that blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no. It's not at all meant that because I know, again, I'm from a white trash area in Florida. I know way more white trashy people than I know well-off white people. The same thing for any other race in that area that I'm from. There was not a lot of well-off people. Most of the people in that area made $30,000. I think the median income for where I'm from was like $28,000-$30,000 a year. And that was like off of whatever the last 2020 was that the last census. Like, yeah, the one before COVID, whatever census was before that, like, yeah, $30,000 was the median income where I'm from. Okay, so not a lot of rich folks. Anywho, but I still do that today. I believe that. Like, not everybody's meant to have money. There is a reason why there is a 1%. And so I'll give you guys the same argument or scenario that I proposed to him. I was like, hey, man, in your scenario, because I remember hearing this statement like, oh, well, Bill Gates has enough money that if he gave everybody in America $50,000, he'd still have this many billions. Cool. Let's go off of that retard logic. And excuse me by using the hard R there. If you gave everybody in America $1 million tax-free in their bank accounts right now, like the Infinity Gauntlet, bam, snap those fingers, everybody just got a notification, $1 million in your bank right now. What changes? I want you guys to think about that, like just truthfully. Because I'll go ahead and tell you, this is how I'm going to tell you, like, nothing would change for the better. It would get insurmountably worse. And here's why. I am from Florida. I'm from the podunk white trash part of Florida where everybody has played the lottery their whole freaking lives and they dream of winning it big, scratch off tickets. And you know what the number one thing, like, that snare that people say, like, oh, if you won that Powerball, Billy, what would you do? Man, I'd give everybody in my family a house, a car, I'd pay all their bills off, and then I'd give everybody in my family $1 million. It's like, cool. Well, all your family's going to be broke and probably in jail or in debt way worse in a year from getting that money than if they were to not have it. And the reason why is because there's a reason why people are in the situation. Remember how I was talking about how poor is and broke? There's a mindset. Money does not change a mindset of people. If they're poor, giving them money is not going to make them not poor. They're just going to spend it on stupid shit and still be poor and probably in debt and more broke, because that's what lottery, if you historically, again, Google this. What do lottery winners do? They blow all that money on crazy houses, expensive things, and what did they not think about? Oh, I won $50 million. I bought a $20 million house, all these cars and property and things. I blew most of the cash. Oh, but what do you have to do? Pay taxes every year. They forgot they had to pay taxes on the money they got from the lottery. And then all this property and stuff, it's like, oh, you know what the taxes on a $20 million house in Florida are? A lot. So people don't, and say the insurance on a freaking house like that. Oh, but poor people don't know this. That's the thing. That's the difference when I say, like, not everybody's meant to have money. Okay, there's a reason why. I mean, there's that, I think, was it Daniel Tosh, I think, said the joke. He's like, look, if you're the kind of person where you think, like, playing the lottery, like, if you're playing the lottery, you're already not good at managing money. Because let's be real, like, that's that $5 or $20 scratch-off ticket, whatever money you're spending on the lottery per month, if you were to take that and invest it in something, you would probably have more money at the end of the year than whatever you won from the lottery. Now, again, there are exceptions with gambling, exceptions to every rule. Sometimes I know guys who've won 20 grand off a scratch-off. I myself have never won more than $50. All right, I was just at Caesar's Palace, like, was it a month ago? And I walked in with $200. I walked out with $400. That's the first time I've ever, like, literally doubled my money at any kind of gambling in my life. And I was freaking over the moon. All right, some people get lucky. Remember how I told you that earlier with the hustling? Like, some people just get lucky. Most people don't. There's a reason why, like, casinos are making money the way they do, is because 1% of people walk out of there happy. The other 99% of people are hating life, chain smoking cigarettes, and just dumping their savings in there. All right, that's just how the shit works. And so again, like, you can't change the mentality, like, broken poor people, whatever, man. If you gave everybody $1 million today, you're not going to change anything. They're just going to go buy shit they can't afford. And most, like, this is where some of the smart people would sit there and be like, oh, I'll pay off all my debts. All right. And that's number one thing. I think that's the first thing anybody should do. Whatever outstanding debt you have, pay it all off. That way you're at ground zero. All right. Whatever you own a vehicle, student loans, whatever, like, boom, get yourself out of the hole, whatever hole you're in, get out of that, And then that's when you got to be smart with money. Like, and I'm just going to leave that alone, because I'm not going to give you any tips or whatever, because I'm not a millionaire. So what the fuck do I know about money? But I know that being out of debt is probably the best place anybody could be to start off with. All right. Dave Ramsey kind of shit right there. Like, just being debt free. That should be like the number one goal of anybody, whether you're rich, poor, whatever. If you don't owe money to anybody, that's great. You're better off than, like, legit, like, 99% of Americans right there, probably the world. If you don't owe money to anybody on earth, any company, you're better off. You are already in the 1% of people doing better than everybody else. That's great. So there you go. Worry about that. Anywho, goddamn, this is going on. Yeah, well, you know what? This is going to be an hour. We'll call this is essentially this is supposed to be a 5-minute rant. This turns into be a fucking shitty podcast video. So, oh man, the hustles. God, I'm getting. Yeah, so I responded to her. My phone is blowing the F up with that Instagram comment on the. But it's true. Like, you can't sit here and sell us bullshit without, like, again, peering behind the curtain and be like, oh, yeah, by the way, turns out that we both had, like, I don't know, whatever degrees you have, like, what is, we just keep hashing it back into that subject. But again, it's just so funny. You just don't want to be transparent about it. So, but that's what 1%ers do. They always, like, appear. Like, if you actually, let me propose this to you. Because I know, actually, again, Seattle area, and in my line of work, I have met and encountered and had conversations with insanely rich people, like multi-millionaires, billionaire people. Like, I've encountered them. And one thing most of them had in common is you couldn't tell they were million or billionaires because they're not sitting here decked out in Versace, Adidas tracksuits, freaking Jordans, and all this like this shit you see your 1%er hustling people, your Andrew Tate, like no. And again, Andrew Tate, he's an exception to the rule because that's his brand is to be that kind of flamboyant and exuberant with all his stuff. So forget I said his name because he is his own special thing. But these guys are just dressed like regular ass people. Okay. I mean, jeans, North Face, because we're watching, regular jacket, having a beanie on, some decent hiking boots or whatever, some comfy shoes, they're not out here dressing and there's an obsession we have in this country with needing to appear wealthy and well off rather than actually be wealthy and well off and then not give a fuck what other people think about that. That's what I believe is our number one issue. So all these, your hustlers, your 1%ers trying to share this shit, they're playing off of that psychological need that we seem to have in this country. These people are pyramid scheming, Ponzi scheming, the ignorant people who you need everybody on social media to see you're doing well. And you guys know this. This is not a secret. People do this for relationships. You guys know like those fake couples, like, oh, those troubled married couples that, they're cheating on this person. But on social media, here's our lovely photos with the kids. We're such a happy couple. And like, no. Okay. There's an appearance. There's like it's curb value. They need all this curb value to be here. And it's a shit show fixer-upper on the inside. And that's the American dream right there. We need to appear we're doing fine instead of actually being fine. And if people could just understand that right there, that's the mentality thing. Remember right there, going back to broke and poor? I don't know I know there's probably a term for that. I need to Google this later. Probably should have done it before making this video. But whatever term that is for like that need to just, I need to look like I'm rich and fake and whatever the fuck. Like I need to be that instead of actually just being content with, hey, I can have money. I just need to flash it. And that's where I've changed that too. Like, don't be wrong. Like I will spend some money. Like I have a really nice pickup truck, but I did that because it's the first, I bought it when I was 30. Yeah. So, at 37 is the first time I bought a luxury vehicle, but I got a nice truck with all the bells and whistles because I've never had that in my life. And I always wanted to have, like, I want a good truck that I'm going to keep for 10 years because I had my last one for almost 10 years, but it was a base model. But that's how I do vehicles. Like, I don't just keep it and then sell it when the new one comes out. Like, I wanted something I can take road trips in and be comfortable and have all these nice things because I've never had that, and I got that. I could afford it, so I finally got it. But hell, I was 37 when that happened, so I wasn't some 25-year-old millionaire doing that. And yeah, I had to freaking take a loan to get it. So again, I didn't drop cash on that. I'm like anybody else. I had to get a loan with a shitty COVID interest rate, and here we are. But I'm not drowning in it. But that's the thing. You have to know you can't live beyond your means. And that's the thing where I struggled in my 20s to understand that. But I married into that problem too, where my partner wanted to and was obsessed with needing to appear flashy to everybody, and we were drowning in debt, but we looked like we were doing fine. And again, that's a thing. I think in your young dumb 20s, you just don't know any better. That's kind of what happens. And again, this is before the social media influencers and your 1%er people were out there showing that. We were just stupid because reality TV is what taught us how to do that shit. But it's a thing now that I'm very happy that even though I make more money now than I ever did 10 years ago or whatever, like when I go out, shit, you're looking, this is a $30 fucking hoodie that this is a 7-year-old hoodie. I've had this for 7 freaking years. I was just going back in my Google Photos. I've had a $30 hoodie for 7 years, and I actually just bought another one, but I freaking ripped the pockets, so that sucked. And I lost 75 pounds, so a 4X is, this is my homeless jacket for around the house. But again, that's the kind of shit. Like, I don't need to go out there and buy a $500 designer hoodie to walk around the house in, or freaking $500 shoes to just, go to a bar or a club to be seen in them, And then, God forbid, I mean, this is Seattle. If you get wet mud or rain on that shit to clean the no. No, I can't. I just don't see how people spend any kind of money on the clothing and the bling and just the shit you need and people spend on to look flashy is insane to me. And I'm so glad like I don't have that in me anymore. Um, I really am because I mean, granted I'm a loser. I mean, I'll spend. Don't get me wrong. I'll spend my money on other things. Like I'm a huge tech nerd. Like again, I got my new Samsung S24. Like when certain tech things come out, like building gaming PCs, like I have to get the best version of whatever the thing was. I'll drop tons of money on video game stuff. Like there's certain games that I'll invest in. Like, oh, I love that skin. Like I'm not immune to that. I have my vices that I will drop money on. But there's that difference of like, is it having a disposable income versus like I'm drowning myself in debt to get some Fortnite skins, oh God. Like, no, don't be an idiot. So, and that goes back to one of the fair points that Addison Girl did make, and I guess we'll wrap up with that, is, and Dave Ramsey used to say this too, like you have to live like no one else so you can live like no one else, but don't live beyond your means. And matter of fact, live under if you can, she says it, live well underneath your means. So like everything's couponing, bargaining, eating cheap shit, like not going out. Cool. And Dave Ramsey's always said that for like 20 years now. You have to live like no one else, meaning like act like you're a broke bitch all the time. So later on in life, you can live like no one else, being a one percenter. All right, that's what Dave Ramsey's whole thing was. And that's a good concept. It is extremely difficult in today's day and age. And again, because when Dave Ramsey wrote that book, like 20-something years ago, again, this is way before inflation and all this other stupid, like back when you could actually get cheap groceries, like for a single guy, like $50. God, even before COVID, let's just say right before COVID. So 2019, January 2019, $50 at a grocery store would feed me for like well beyond a week. And now granted, like, I'm not getting like T-bone steaks and lobster and caviar and some crazy, but just like regular people food. Some hamburger meat, taco shells, basic stuff, some mac and cheese, hamburger helper, tortilla shells, like depending on what I wanted. Is this going to be like Taco Tuesday stuff or some pasta, some stroganoff, some whatever, but like $50 a week would feed me very well. And again, I was 325 pounds at that point, so I was like, I wasn't missing any meals. I promise you that. And then nowadays, like, Jesus Christ, I mean, hell, my freaking cat food I just bought for her for like a 2-week supply was like $40 for dried cat food. And just it's crazy when I sit here and just you look at the prices and stuff. Anyway, again, whole other talk about inflation. I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but there are certain principles, kind of like the Bible. When this was written, the way of the world was way different than it is today. And so when you see the text, like, yes, this makes sense, but we should adapt it with some modern standards because that's what rational people with common sense would do. And you have to. Because unfortunately, like, again, I look at a lot of these young people, and I used to judge, like, if you were in your 20s and you were still living with your parents, like, in my 20s, I judged people, like, I mean, I had to join the military to do it, to get out. And nowadays, I'm like, dude, I don't see how people under the age of 30 can possibly afford to live on. I mean, that's a miraculous thing. If I see, like, on a dating app, like, if I meet a girl and she's like, oh, yeah, I have my own place, I'm like, what do you do? Like, you're under 30 years old and you have a house or you live by yourself? Like, I'm assuming you're very well employed to be able to afford that in the Seattle area because it's expensive here. I mean, Christ on the cross. I live in the ghetto. I'm in a place. I'll tell you, I don't give a fuck. I live in Renton, Washington. Renton. All right, and I'm not in the good part. I'm in straight up like Martin Luther King Street. And any of you guys familiar with some funny black comedians from the Kings of Comedy, you will know the reference I make to. Like, when you live anywhere close to, actually, that's Chris Rock. If you live by Martin Luther King Street anywhere in America, it's not a good neighborhood. And in Renton, Washington, that goes double. So I pay $2,600 a month to live in a 1,000 square foot, 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in the fucking ghetto. Just want you to let that sink in for a second. 2,600. And it's not fucking nice. This is a shithole. I wish I could turn my webcam and like let you just see what my outside view is, and dead homeless people and some immigrant camps that fluctuate from time to time, and broken in cars and Kia Boy shit's happening every night, and some gunshots. I think it's been a little chilly for gunshots, but you know, that's the market here. So again, where you live at, and that's where I go back to this and saying like location really matters when you're bragging about how much money you have. Because guess what? $2,600 a month here in Renton isn't shit. You can't even rent a house for under $3,000 a month in where I'm at here. Like, that doesn't exist. But you take $3,000 a month and you go to, I don't know, probably 80% of the rest of this country, and that'll get you some property, son. $3,000 a month is a great mortgage payment or proper rental or whatever. That's buku. Okay, so again, location definitely matters when you're talking about shit like this. So many other factors that go into this, and again, so I know this was long, and you guys probably haven't watched most of this shit, and that's fine. But this is my fun therapy, is for me to rant and get this shit out, and then I put it on the internet, and I'll watch it a year from now and be like, oh, okay, I should have wore a better hoodie. But I just want people to have and exercise some common sense with this shit. That just because you see these people succeeding and claiming to do well on social media, it's like, hey, you know, that all sounds good. You're showing us these little clips of your vacations and whatever, but like, kind of like that double standard with all these, especially out here, like, oh, like we want to see Donald Trump. We want to see your tax records and shit. Like, all right. So anytime I see people bragging about their money, like, yeah, show me your tax returns. Like, I want to see, like, show me the hard data. Like, all these assets and stuff you have, like, show me what's your overhead, what's this, what is your income versus, you know, again, we can go into economics, but, like, I like to see data. Making these little social media clips but again, my line of work and what I do in sifting through bullshit, you know, but again, this kind of shit is how they make money, because 99% of their audience is young, dumb, and again, I don't mean this to be ugly, but ignorant youth who just don't know any better, and they think that if I do these things and keep following Addison, I'll be rich. And if you work hard and hustle and grind, you'll be rich just like these guys and be able to drive a Bugatti that they rented to take a photo with. So, yeah, there's a reason why it's called hype. And most of the time it's not. It's smoke and mirrors, my young friends. Smoke and mirrors and illusions. And you're just charmed by it. As we all were at one point in time. Again, I cannot say, had I been born 15 years later in life, and if I was a young person at the age of 23 today, I would probably be just the same way. I would know no better, because this is what I was raised on, with cell phones and social media, and that's your upbringing. You're a product of your environment. That's why I'm a hardcore gamer now, because we had freaking consoles, Ataris, Nintendos. A Nintendo was like my childhood thing. Like, I was a kid. Wow, how old was I? Like 5 or 6, when Nintendo came out, and like that to me blew my freaking mind. So you're, again, product of your environment. So I don't, for the people, when I'm talking shit about you or to you, like, I don't truly mean it to be ugly, but I believe in offending people to get my point through. Because a lot of times, if you don't offend somebody, shit you just say goes right over their heads. But if you can offend someone, that actually means you got through. In a good way or a bad way, I don't care. If the information gets to you somehow, I don't really give a fuck about your feelings. I just want people to be educated and then stop believing and supporting these fucking con artists who are garbage human beings for playing on your ignorance and suckers, and they really should. I wish we could just starve them out of social media and have them go away. And hey, you know, they don't, why? That's the fun part. This is where I don't understand. Okay, and I will. I promise this is my last point, and we will wrap up. If you're such hot shit, making so much freaking money, and you're doing so well, why do you need to be on social media every day posting stuff about it and sharing the secrets on how to get there? Right? I mean, think about it. If I was 25 years old and I was literally making $1 million a year, son, I would be a ghost. And guess what? That's the funny thing. Remember how I was talking about if you ever get to actually meet or encounter and hopefully have a conversation with somebody who has serious wealth. And I literally mean like a multi-millionaire, billion-dollar guy, like people who own or like manage big companies. Talk to them. And if you notice, like, you're not going to find them on social media. Like, you're not going to see paparazzi photos or whatever. Like, they're not celebrities, these people. They stay in the fucking private life. They're not driving flashy cars. They have nice shit. Don't get me wrong. They have nice houses. They'll drive nice cars. They're not out there in Lamborghinis and shit, but they'll be in Range Rovers and really nice, Lexus, like nice, good quality vehicles, but they're not flashy. They want to just blend in and go about their lives and go shopping and do shit, go hiking, go see things and enjoy life like regular humans do, and just still be able to afford things that you and I will never be able to and just dream about, okay? They're not on social media trying to like teach you these secrets, okay? That's the number one difference between actual wealthy people and these fucking con artists you're putting your faith into. All right. And even Dave Ramsey, I fucking can't stand Dave Ramsey nowadays because his standards with things have changed. Because again, he's been like a self-made millionaire, whatever, whatnot. But again, if you're doing so well, then why don't you just disappear and go live your life quietly? Like, why do you constantly need to be in the limelight and be seen and heard with podcasts and whatever? So again, that's that level of like, there's some narcissism and psychological issues within that. That's like where it's like, I don't believe it. If you're truly as well off as you say you are, because again, I've met well off people and they could give a fuck about what other people think about them or know about them, or like, you're just not going to see it. They're not going to put pictures of them or their kids or, yeah, this is our family vacation. And like, nah, they're ghosts. They're ghosts. They're not going to see that shit. So that's who you should be idolizing, is real people, real wealthy people, real people that's how they live their lives. They can have money and they don't need to let anybody know about it. Because that's all that matters. If you're rich and you're wealthy and you can buy and do whatever you want to do, then what else matters? What do you care what people think about you? So, just some food for thought. All right, we're done. This took, hour and almost 15 minutes. Probably a little too long to post to Instagram, but I'll put this on the YouTube page and hopefully I don't get in trouble at work or anywhere for saying bad words or somehow mentioning anything that I'm not supposed to do, because I get in trouble for everything I say now. But that's it, guys. Just don't believe the con artists. And you know what? Believe whatever you want to believe, but ask questions. And ask better questions. That's the problem. There's too many stupid people asking stupid questions. When you hear information, question it, and then ask good questions about the information. And just don't take it at face value because, again, pyramid, Ponzi schemes, you're just getting suckered. If all these cocksuckers you're seeing on Instagram were truly that well off, they wouldn't need your views and likes and subscribes to stay that way. Just a thought. Okay, guys, I'll see you later. Bye.